Welcome everyone to this Ask Me Anything live. So first of all, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining here. Don't be shy. Come in. The door is open. You're probably coming in from LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, whatever you're coming from. You're more than welcome to spend the hour with us again for another Ask Me Anything live. So my name is Henrik Rexed. I will try to be your host and your the moderator of tonight's Ask Me Anything. And yeah, I don't know if you paid attention, but last week, precisely on the 28th of November, I had the chance to host an observability clinic with an awesome product manager, and he is back tonight with me again. So let me introduce the person that will walk through and explain and remind you what we are doing recently on Kubernetes. It's really exciting. I don't know if you looked at the video, but the UI, the app is awesome. So let me introduce our one of the star of tonight that will help me to cover this Ask Me Anything. It's Florian Geigl. Hi, Florian. How are you?
Hey, Henrik, thanks for the kind words. Doing great. Happy to be back. Looking forward to answer all the questions that we get.
And I think it was not enough to have 1 hour just showing the app. I think it was just needed to have 1 hour just to interact with people.
Totally. I mean, we can't fit everything in an hour, like there was so much content. Of course, we need more time.
We have another guest for tonight because I think when it comes to Kubernetes, I love to talk about Kubernetes. Florian loves to talk about Kubernetes, but I have another good colleagues that he also, I would say, Kubernetes lovers. He usually is in most of the trade shows where Dynatrace is related to cloud native technologies, and I'm referring to Kyle. So hi, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing great. The jazz hands are ready. We're happy to be back on the stream. Thanks for having me, gents.
Awesome. So before we start, maybe anyone who's connected, let us know where you are connected from. So personally, I am connected from south of France, the beauty south of France. You can see the sun here almost. So what about you, Florian?
Connected from the south of Austria, also most beautiful place in Austria.
And Kyle,
Hey.
where are you connected from?
I'm in sunny Southern California out in Orange County. I'm doing it global.
Cool. So what about the others? I mean, if you're connected, don't be shy. Just drop you where you are connected from. We see that we have India. Welcome. And India is a huge country. So where specifically in India? It will be also interesting to know if you're from Mumbai or Bangalore or Pune or whatever. So yeah, welcome. Iran, cool. We have a lot of different nations represented here, and we have Paris. Yes, France is represented. That is great. We have
Second best
Philly,
city on earth.
and we have Colombia, and so on. So before the session, to remind to anyone who's connected, here we are here during 1 hour, only here to answer questions related to one specific topic of today. It's the new Kubernetes applications. So if you had the chance to look at the recorded session, or you've been maybe connected with us live last week with Florian, and you listened to what we presented, awesome. You may have questions, even better. So you have the chance tonight to ask your questions. But before we start answering your questions, I think for those who didn't have the chance to see and hear about these new updates, the Kubernetes applications, I would be great to remind to all of us what did we announce and what do we provide now in the new Dynatrace platform. So, Kyle, could you remind us what do we do and what is the graded announcement that we did a few weeks back?
Absolutely. That is why they pay me the big bucks. There we go. That's me. That's my big old head up there. Sure. So we jump ahead. Obviously, we've all introduced ourselves already. What we want to talk about, right, is just maybe a quick refresher on what observability in Dynatrace kind of is, right, and how it kind of pertains to Kubernetes workloads. So just a quick reminder, or maybe if you're hearing it for the first time, Dynatrace is a full observability platform, right? What we call full stack observability. So metrics, logs, and traces, But not just those, right? We take that observability data and we enhance it with our topology model. We also include metadata, and we add functionality for security and vulnerabilities, business and transaction flows, but we're also an open platform, right? If you've worked with Dynatrace before, I'm sure you have to be familiar with a one-agent technology, a single agent that deploys across your Kubernetes clusters or your standalone VMs that does automatic instrumentation. But our open APIs allow us to ingest data from external sources like logs or OpenTelemetry. And all of that data is stored in our new data lakehouse, Grail, which is backed by our Davis AI and provides analytics on top of our platform. Specifically for Kubernetes observability, right? What's really important to remember about us is that Dynatrace is architected to be in the multi-cloud, but not just for multi-cloud. Key takeaway that we should have, right, is that Dynatrace is architected to be agnostic to your environment. So whether you're using Google Kubernetes Engine or AWS EKS inside of your cloud providers, maybe you're also using something like OpenShift or RKE on-prem, Dynatrace doesn't care there, right? We're agnostic to your environment. So you deploy Dynatrace down as an operator, which allows us to do the automatic instrumentation of the node and the pod layers inside of your cluster. All of those components, right, whether they be from the cluster layer, infrastructure topology, from the control plane, application performance, data coming in from your clusters, all of that is automatically instrumented and grouped together inside of the Dynatrace topology model, which then allows us to integrate that data through the Kubernetes events and any kind of external ecosystem metrics that you're using from your Kubernetes cluster. And all of that is added on to the business value of digital experience monitoring, real user monitoring, and backed by the Dynatrace AI. Oof, can you tell I'm a sales guy?
Wow. I mean, you did a great job.
I've done that once or twice,
Okay.
right? But what we're announcing today, right, is the new, or I shouldn't say, we announced last week and we actually presented at KubeCon, is the new experience for Dynatrace, right? What we just kind of showed you in the infographic is really great stuff. But one of the things that we're trying to enhance now is the platform engineering experience. Application performance monitoring is fantastic, but where are we trying to fit in with this new functionality? And Florian will kind of jump through a lot of these things. Shameless plug here. If you're interested in seeing more of this, we'll be doing deep dives on this at this year's Perform. You can see up here in the corner. We will be releasing this at the beginning of the year, which just so happens to coincide with the Dynatrace User Conference Perform, taking place in Las Vegas, Nevada. But we're going to be focusing on built-in views to focus on individual teams' responsibilities, whether those adhere to security issues, whether they respond to health issues. The idea is to be able to provide data at a glance, right? Dynatrace's mission statement is to be able to provide answers out of data. So the new Kubernetes app will be designed to show rather than have you investigate what's happening inside of your clusters. And Florian will kind of dig in on how we can look at response time metrics, how we can look at request limits, and how we can maybe improve your platform engineering use cases. Help teams that don't necessarily care about application performance, but care about the health of the cluster. One of my personal favorite things that we're going to be bringing up here is that if you've worked with Dynatrace in the past, there's lots of different ways to deploy Dynatrace, and our documentation is extremely verbose. But with the new Dynatrace platform backed by Grail, we're including a new product called Notebooks, and we're leveraging Notebooks to be able, pardon me, to provide documentation directly in product. So if you're using AKS or you're using GKE or you're using RKE, you can go directly to your Kubernetes integration, find the flavor of the platform that you're using, and get the copy paste steps to deploy directly into your environment. And if we lose you at the beginning, if we lose you before the end, key takeaways that we want to have today is, again, that the new Kubernetes app, the new Kubernetes experience is just the tip of the iceberg. But we're going to be doing platform health at a glance. We're really trying to get deeper into platform engineering use cases, platform engineering teams, and help them identify your security posture, understand how logs and events will benefit and help those teams. One of the key things that we can't really dig too deep into, but maybe Florian can, is that the new deployment that we'll be using is a hybrid mode where we'll be deploying programmatically for application performance monitoring, which results in a smaller Dynatrace footprint, less overhead, but also reduced privileges that Dynatrace needs inside your Kubernetes cluster when we deploy. And this also will translate to a pricing model which is going to be significantly more transparent and far more cloud friendly. We'll be moving to a model where it'll be purely consumption based, where you will be paying for the amount of pods that you're actually running rather than having to deal with the monolithic architecture of your clusters. We'll start doing some questions. I hear Henrik wants to correct the horrible things that the sales guys say.
Did you say new pricing model? Did you say that?
I would say let's say updated. Say exciting, new.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Maybe. I mean, Florian, what does that mean for our users? What does that new pricing model means for our users?
It means it's more transparent, it's more fair, and it's really on the user. Like they can select if they only want to get platform insights, they only pay bot hours. If they need APM on top, they pay memory usage as they used to in our full stack. But now they can just select namespaces. So they decide like this namespace should get APM, the other one probably gets it later. So that's really awesome.
So that's Dan who says, Dynatrace operating makes me feel I'm an expert in Kubernetes, even when I only know kubectl get all. It's kind of true, but we need to also make it, you will see. Dan, you will be patient. And Florian is going to walk through what this new app means really for you when you have to dig in the cluster. And you will see that you don't want to use kubectl anymore. You don't want to use to K8s anymore. You will see that you don't need it because Dynatrace provide you the answers. So Florian, show us. I'm so eager to see that again.
Awesome. Can we get my screen? Awesome. Perfect. So some of you might have already seen it last week, but we're gonna do a quick demo again today. So what you see here is the new Kubernetes app provided by Dynatrace. Just to give you a quick orientation, on top you have a filter bar. On the left, you get all your resources that you're used to from Kubernetes. And in here, here's kind of where the magic happens. So you see here on top, you have the Davis health status. So it tells you whether your clusters are good, like cluster could be running out of resources. How's your nodes doing? You know, there's disk pressure conditions and all those things. So that's also covered by Dynatrace. We do also health indications for your namespaces. Maybe some teams are hitting their quotas. And the same for workloads, like if you have frequent restarting containers, we pick that up and we bubble it up and give it to you in a very nice way, telling you like 11 of your workloads are currently not doing good. So that's the message here. It's really easy, really simple, all at a glance. Down here, you see your clusters. You see we support all of the major distributions, AKS, BottleRocket, and AWS, Cheeky. So that's all there. Again, for each cluster, you see how's your nodes doing. You get the warning events bubbled up. So I really love this new approach that we're taking here. Instead of the typical way of showing the warning events in the tail view, we aggregate them, we bubble up the most frequent one to you and just show it to you right away here. So you see, like in here, there's some killing going on, the same here at Cheeky, and in the BottleRocket, there's even already eviction happening. You see how's your namespace is doing. You see how your workloads are doing. Like there's some backup events happening. There's a policy violation. So that's actually a warning event thrown by Kyverno. So here a workload is not following a policy that I set up. And back here, you see again workload health, and you can see how many pods are in there. We can also dive into one of the clusters to get a more detailed view. So it opens up nicely here. Again, you see health status of your cluster. You see your API server is good. There's CPU left, there's memory left. There's also space left for pods. So that's all good. You get a security status. So in here, we have one vulnerability. You can click on it, of course, and you would see what's happening in there. So there's an open redirect known vulnerability in Kubernetes that needs to be fixed. Going back, you can see here the health of your related resources. So you see like one of your 4 nodes in this BottleRocket cluster is currently not doing good. Namespaces are all good. 3 workloads are having problem. Let's move back to the overview here. So what you see here, nice overview of your utilization. You see how's usage doing compared to your requests and limits. Get the same for your memory. You see how your pods are doing. Very easy to digest section about your nodes. So your nodes are ready. And you can also see it like there's one node with a problematic condition, and there's also one node with warning events, and you get them nicely aggregated up here. What else do you see? Same very easy to digest section about workloads. So 18 workloads currently in this cluster. There's one with restarting container, one with failed pods, one with warning events. And of course you can drill down, like you want to know which workload is throwing this warning event. So you click on it, you get the list of the workloads that currently are throwing warning events. Clicking on the workload, you dive into the details of the workload. Again, see the health of your workload aggregated on top, see utilization, see how your pods are doing. So currently there's 5 out of your 12 pods with restarts. There's evictions going on, so that's not good. You get your events in here, of course, also in the tail view that you might be used to. You get your logs in here, all in context. So you see here's a worker starting up. You get your SLOs, you get ownership. I mean, that's most important for me, because if the workload is not doing good, obviously I want to know whom to reach out. So you see here's the team compute owning this one. You can open it up. You would see their Slack channel, can reach out to them and talk to them that they should take care of the workload. What you see here is, for example, that usage is far above request. So that's why all the eviction is going on. And that's why you would reach out to them and tell them basically that they should adjust their requests to the actual usage so they could fix this problem. You can also check for vulnerabilities again here. So no third-party vulnerabilities, also no code level vulnerabilities found in this case here. So that's about basic health checks with the new Kubernetes app. Before I go on, are there questions we want to answer?
I have one question, so I'm taking my questions first, guys. So I'm sorry for that. My question is, are we able to filter by label and have more insights on the actual utilizations? Because you show us the health, and I'm pretty eager to see. I want to see, for example, all the pods having an Istio sidecar, for example, and then see if I am over-consuming memory or CPU.
So you can filter by labels, of course. You would go to your pod list. You can add here filter by pod label. I'm not sure if there's an Istio thingy set up. Unfortunately not. Let's just use a different one. Let's use this one. So what you would see in here is all the pods with a certain label. And what's really nice about also the new experiences, we are introducing so-called perspective. So whether you care about health of your pods, or you care about the utilization or the metadata of your pods. So let's say the use case that Henrik just brought up. So if you care about utilization, you just switch the perspective and you immediately see like what's the CPU usage of this cert manager here? Is there throttling going on? What's the requests? What's the limit? What's the memory usage? So you get all that in here. Of course, you can also change to metadata to immediately see the labels that attach to the pod or to the annotation. And you can keep this view going to different elements, like you want to see metadata view of your deployments, just switch to deployments. Again, same view, all your workload labels here, workload annotations. So that's a really nice way to explore your Kubernetes environment.
So
Henrik.
we had a question from Barry a few minutes ago. So in fact, there was 2 questions. When will this be available? So that's a good question. What predictive or generative AI is built into this give team ideas, potentials, issues coming up?
Kyle, do you want to take the first one? You know, you're the Sally guy.
It's all magic. We do magic behind the scenes. Sure, right? So first, this is going to be made available in Q1. So we're looking right at performs the very end of January. We're going to be releasing that. So we'll be going fully GA. So you'll be able to opt in once, as long as you have a SaaS tenant. That is a limitation there. And then as far as predictive analytics, at the base layer, I believe Florian gut checked me on this, but the core integration is going to be working on infrastructure metrics. So we can use the Grail analytics data to provide analysis on top of the baselines. For the GA release, I'm not exactly sure how deep we'll be taking the infrastructure and the platform engineering use cases. Florian, you want to expand on that a little bit?
And one exciting thing also, I would say, is that this Kubernetes app, when you deploy it, the active gate will collect and enrich more data. So then, if you are a DQL lover, like I do, so I don't have the DQL lover T-shirt today, but if you love DQL and you want to do DQL during evening party DQL parties at home, you can do that, and you see that there is a lot of enrichment added to the pod. And once you have that, then you can use all the features that are coming with Davis and Copilot and so on. You will take advantage of that. So that is really, really exciting from my perspective, at least. Florian, you wanted to say something?
No, that's perfectly fine. I think everything has been said around that. Perfectly fine. Nothing to add here.
There was another question from Mustafa. So I think, Mustafa, I understand your questions. So Mustafa asked, while redeploying the workload and deployment, still getting all other workload and all services regarding all pods that were running earlier. So that was on the second generation of the product. That's true when you were redeploying a new version of the container inside the pod. You will see the container instance of the previous deployment and the two ones, and then you had to figure out which one you have to select if you want to drill down into the container. And here, I think, Florian, in the way it's presented, it's mainly almost live data.
Yes,
is it?
It really focusing on live data now. So for the events that we are bubbling up, we're considering the last 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know it by heart right now, but really the now state. And for the all the resources that you see in here, that's only the one that we see right now. So that's all live, and it's not focusing on the past. And also your outdated containers won't show up here. I guess that was the question.
Yep, I think so. And one question from my end: if I want to take advantage of the app, so I can use I just need the operator, Dynatrace operator, into the active gate. What type of mode is the minimal requirement to take benefits of the Kubernetes app?
Let's look at this in the app. So if we go to add cluster at the top right here, you basically end up in the onboarding, and that explains it right away. So you select your distribution, for example, GKE, and then you decide basically what you want to have. So you can go only for Kubernetes observability if you only want to have the app and you want to have all the alerts that you've seen, the health indicators, you want to see how's the utilization going on, and conditions. So all the things, that's all covered in there. Anything that's related to Kubernetes observability, related to the health of your cluster itself, that's all covered with this one. If you want to have on top application observability, you just check this one. And technically speaking, for everyone who's a Dynatrace customer, so this will roll out, the upper part will roll out the active gate, taking care of API monitoring. And the second one will roll out the webhook, meaning for the application that you select that you want to have APM, it's going to do injection, and you would automatically get, with the other apps on the Dynatrace platform, all the value for your APM. So you get distributed tracing, performance monitoring, code profiling, and digital experience.
So you're saying that there is no daemon set for the node anymore.
Exactly.
Because you mentioned you only have the injections of the code module on one end or the active gate. So which means one of the workload that we used to have in the past with our previous the second generation of the second gen, I would say, we had this daemon set that could be deployed. So this is over.
It's not required anymore. Yeah, it's over. So we were able to move all the metrics that we used to get from this daemon set to the active gate, and we are now basically using all what's available in the Kubernetes API and just integrating it, enriching it, so you get the full value that you're used to from Dynatrace, like everything in context, all in a place.
Now I understand what you mean by less privileges. What Kyle mentioned before, you need less rights to run the operator. So
because we
that
don't need the daemon set anymore. We don't need to have basically all the permissions that people don't want to have other tools in their cluster. So that's what we did.
cool. It's awesome. So first of all, applause from the team because they did an awesome job to provide us this application to us and to all our users, because I think it's a great enhancement in terms of experience. We have a questions from Mikola. So it says, is there a quick way to set up alerts if a throttling event occur? So I think I have the answer. Kyle, do you have the answer?
So for the Gen 3 app, it's actually something that we'll have out of the box. What Florian is scrambling to pick it up right now.
Yeah.
But we can also actually do this with the Gen 2 with the current product that we actually have from the Kubernetes API. I'll let Florian jump into his, and then I can show you how to do it today.
So what you see up here is like you have your ad service, it's a workload. Currently, this one is deactivated, but you can simply activate monitoring for high CPU throttling. And of course, you could configure it and adjust it to your needs. And you also don't need to set this up like for basically for all of your workloads. So you can either decide like, I want to have default throttling monitoring for all of my workloads. You can just say like for all the workloads in the cluster, or you can scope it down to just a namespace. So if you have different requirements, some teams want to have CPU throttling alerts and the other ones don't want to have it, you can easily do that by just changing the scope of where you want to apply these alerts.
So it means that the out-of-the-box alerting, the anomaly detection rules that we had built over the last few months is still there. And I see in the top right, there is an anomaly detection tab here on the app.
Yeah, right. So currently there's no bots ready, basically, and that's what it's saying here. Like this workload has some bots issues and the bots are not ready. You see down here that there are some bots with restarting containers and they're throwing warning events. So there's a backoff going on. So what I would do is I would look at the events, so what's saying it's a failed container. You could look at logs if you have it connected. What do you see here? Oops. So there seems to be something wrong with gRPC. No expert in that, but that's how you would figure that out. Yes.
Cool. We have two questions, in fact, that has been asked by Amit. So let's start with the first question that he just dropped a few seconds ago. So to use the new app, will it incur DDU license costs?
So the
Sales
app
guy will take that one. Oh, maybe you start. Maybe you start that one. Then I'll come with the good news.
I like it.
So the new app is being powered by Grail. So that means two things. One, we won't be using DDUs for it anymore, which is fantastic. DDUs will kind of be going the way of the dodo, so to speak, at least for this. But there is a limitation that you will need to have Grail enabled in your environment. So we will be using the data lakehouse to ingest and retain this data for, well, as long as you want to set that up. But we will not be charging a flat fee via DDUs or custom metrics like that.
And I think it's a DPS license, no? Or is one of the requirements?
Exactly. So it's required that you have DPS in place. That's a requirement. And of course, you need to have our Dynatrace platform in place, basically Grail on SaaS. If you're more technically familiar, that's what you need as a requirement for running the new Kubernetes app.
And that comes to the second question of Amit. So this is a question that I love because it touch topics of my heart. So thanks, Amit, for asking that questions. Will we still be able to extract Prometheus metrics from the cluster? And I say, yes, of course. But what will be the impact for the licensing?
So licensing-wise, it's covered in DPS. It's called... Kyle, do you know how it's called in DPS? It's called, you mentioned it just before, metrics.
Consumption, pure consumption, IRQ.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's not DDUs anymore, but it's based on consumption. And I think it got a new name, so we're moving away from this DDU thingy. And there's a new name for metrics. I think there's an item in DPS. I don't have it
time
at the top.
series. Yep. So we call it time series data in the back end. From a customer perspective, you won't ever actually see the individual calculation on it. But from Prometheus, there's a couple different components, right? So you could be consuming Prometheus metrics, Prometheus-based logs, and potentially even some traces, depending on how your configuration is set up. So there are different functionalities across those.
But anyway, if the operator is picking up metrics from with the annotations of the operator, the usage will be similar as sending open telemetry metrics or traces or logs or whatever I have from using on a collector. It's going to be like a sort of a DDU approach, I guess, in the DPS world. No, not at all. Okay, I'm completely wrong.
It'll be obfuscated, but DDUs are a bad word now. We don't say those anymore.
Okay, so it's a slang. So it's a slang. Are you saying the DDU is a slang,
folks? We know what we did. We're sorry. So just to kind of like maybe wrap your head around kind of the DPS around itself, right? The Dynatrace platform subscription. We're kind of talking about the DDUs, and essentially from a product perspective, right? It became a SKU, something that we would license on. And we're trying to get away from that, right? We don't want to create paywalls to get to being able to access specific features or being able to retain specific data. So with the platform subscription, what we're trying to do is, if you want to start consuming Prometheus metrics, you can do that today. If you want to go in and you want to turn security vulnerabilities on in your environment, you can do that today without having to go and talk to a rep, without having to listen to a long-winded sales engineer like myself explain why it's so cool. You can just go into the UI and turn it on. And how we're allowing that to work is that you would get assigned a budget, your subscription, right? And however you want to use that budget, whether it be consuming Prometheus metrics or using the new Kubernetes app or ingesting terabytes of logs a day, you can do that now without having to renegotiate a contract, right? We're opening up the platform as a long-term subscription model, just like any of the other cloud providers that you work today, AWS, right? They don't make you renegotiate your contract every time you want to use a new feature that they've released. So DDUs are right, but forest for the trees.
Okay. So one thing which is exciting with this new Kubernetes application, from my perspective, is the fact that it's enriching data, and then it's enabler to give you the keys, understanding the data we're providing you, and then you can say, I have workflow in Dynatrace, so I can do automation. So while waiting for other questions, I just going to suggest to show you a few examples of what you can achieve, starting from the Kubernetes application. So I have my, I'm going to share my screen, and you will see that from the screen perspective, I have the Kubernetes application. So here I prefer the daily the light the lights display instead of the dark display. But here, what I'm saying here, for example, I want to do DQLs, and I have no idea how the data is structured in Grail, because usually when you start doing queries, you need to understand how the relationship between the tables, whatever. So then you can basically extract, fetch, and manipulate the data. So let's say that I am really interested in fishing for deployments where the teams that are deploying the cluster is not setting any request limits. So Florian showed you that you can go to utilizations. So here you can see utilizations with the CPU usage, the throttle, request, the limits, memory usage, and you also have the everything. So this, let's say that I may be interested to say, oh, I want to select, for example, here we can say the CPU request is 0. We have some memory usage. Do we have some memory? Yeah, we have a few of them that are also 0 in memory. So there are a few workload that may not respect the best practices that I have defined with the teams that I want to deploy in this cluster. So what I can do here, I want to do an automation, but I have no idea where to start. So I can click on those 3 dots here, and then you can see that we have open with, and then I can simply select the notebook here, and it will, of course, I need to select which notebook I want to send that DQL, and you will see that it will open this notebook. And if I scroll down to the bottom of my notebook, yeah, it's a big notebook, you can see that I have this query. And you say, "Wow, it's a big query." Yes, it is, but it's you'll see it's very easy to understand. So there's the container instance will hold all the container information, so the labels and everything that you can have, and then a container belongs to Kubernetes, a cloud application, and a cloud application belongs to a cluster. And then you also a workload can belong to a namespace. So there is a relationship which is quite obvious in the data model. But once you have understand this type of query, then you can start thinking of building, let's say, query. Let's say I have, which give me 2 seconds. I have a query that says, okay, so I want to list all the workload having no limits defined in memory. Okay, that could be use case. So I took the previous query that we had in generated by the Kubernetes application, and here I have two namespaces in my case, which is technical. I obviously no team's going to deploy in those namespaces, so I don't want to look at those because they are technical. So I want to focus on the other namespaces. So by running that query, it will basically cloud application deployment type is oh yeah, I have changed something probably, but yeah, this is my mistake. Sorry. So if I run that workload, I will have some results. You can see that I have the container, the namespace, the workload, and also the owner who is owning that application. Because I don't know if you remember, but in Dynatrace we have this this notion of ownership, and with the help of the ownership, you can basically take actions. I know that those workload is not respecting my requirements, and then I can think of a workload where I can, with the help of the ownership, reach out to the team by Slack. So this is what I did here with the workload. I have built two workflows. One is about sending a message to team where this is for the optimizing the workload, but sending a team where there's no requests and limits defined. So it's the same query I showed you a few minutes ago. I have another step where I do some parsing on the results of the DQL. So two JavaScripts. Then I have a predefined action called get owners that will get the ownership teams and the contact details, how I can reach out to them by email, by Slack, and so on. Then I take the information of Slack, and then I generate a Slack message. And as a consequence, I can run that workflow if needed. Let me run it. I don't know if you have data that will end up in Slack, but if I open Slack with my demo workspace, which is here, I should receive in a few seconds couple of messages. So basically here I have two teams, and you can see here, for example, it says the following workload and this is more on the optimizations, but I should receive in a few seconds information that there are workloads that are not defining request and limits, and I should take action on that. So this is just an example. Again, it could be improved, just a demo. And this is coming only because the Dynatrace application is enriching the data. So do you have any? So I was talking. I didn't look at the questions. I'm sorry about this. But yeah, just think about the Kubernetes new application gives you a lot of insights, but then also you can also start imagining workflows where you can reach out automatically to teams, make some suggestions, optimize workload. So it's quite impressive. So I think we have a friend of us connected, which is exciting. So this is so hi Mark. I don't know if you're connected here, but I see that Mark has asked questions, so maybe we can answer to Mark's questions. So how about workflows to adjust the cluster pods based on DT measurements, like external anomaly detections driving auto remediations? Yeah, so Mark, this is exactly what I showed you here in this example. I have another workflow. So here it's not external data; it's based on the Kubernetes app. But again, if you know the app and the data that you're ingesting, you can think of building workflows that will suggest recommendations or optimize things. So here, for example, I have a workflow that takes all the resource usage of all the containers, and I'm building a ratio. A ratio, say, I want to have the usage divided by what I have requested and multiply by 100, so I get a ratio. So it measures the efficiency of utilizations compared to what I've requested. And here in my case, I'm only interested in the workload that are 60 under 60% efficiency, or more than 110. Why 110? Because you can consume more than you have requested. This is why limits come into place. But if you have more than 110%, I can say that maybe the team is not implementing the right requests policies. So I'm getting that workload, and then I'm recalculating suggestions in terms of what we should define to optimize a bit more the resources, and then I send that as a message to the team. So this is again an example of automation. And again, this is because we have the data. You could basically try imagine impressive automations, remediations, whatever you name it. I don't know if I answer your questions, Mark, but let me know if I answer your questions. All right. So we are at 41. We have about 50 minutes left for this Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions related to the new Kubernetes applications, or the operator, the licensing that we are providing in the new Kubernetes application, let us know. We have still 15 minutes to take any of your questions. Questions. So what about no just message to teams, but like taking an actual action, reaching and pushing configuration change to the app or the Kubernetes infrastructure? So to answer that questions, I would say I'm not very comfortable of having a tooling changing things in without traces somewhere. I would rather have a workflow. Again, it's possible. Nothing is blocking you to do that. I would prefer to have like a suggestions, create a Jira ticket, or create a commit in Git with some new workload definitions, and then with your GitOps process, it will deploy it automatically. But at least with this approach, by making commits, you have a trace somewhere that something have been suggested, and someone has to approve that PR, or that pull request, or whatever has been done by Dynatrace. But again, if you want to apply it directly in the cluster, just to let you know, we have a component called Edge Connect that has been introduced a few weeks back. Edge Connect is like a sort of a component that will be securely connected to the cluster, and then you can send requests to it. Which means if I do an HTTP call to test.com, and test.com corresponds to my Edge Connect component, then my Dynatrace tenant is going not to send the HTTP request to the internet, but is going to use that tunnel to send the request. Which means I can think of sending API Kubernetes API request, because at the end, when you do kubectl, it's an API request. So you can try to imagine, let's say I want to delete a resource, I want to apply a new resource through utilizing that Edge Connect component. That is technically a workflow that could be possible, but again, keep in mind that you are taking actions and there is no trace. You have no trace in your repo. So I would say do a commit will be safer for sure.
The overarching fear, right, is that Dynatrace is an observability platform, right, and we want Dynatrace to provide the trigger for that. So what Henrik's kind of alluding to, right, is using workflows, Mark, just like actually taking the action. What we want to do is inform whatever that tooling is. So to create a workflow in Dynatrace to say, I've gotten this condition, and that condition maybe we'll just say for the sake of argument is a low disk space issue on an individual node, or a set of pods that are not running. What we would prefer that you do, what our recommendation would be, is leverage Dynatrace's observability data and look at the KPIs that identify how you would want to act on that, right? So from a workflow perspective, you would have an event trigger that would say, hey, if I see this specific log message, or I see that there are 0 pods running, we would build a workflow to create the logic to run an Ansible job, or to run something inside of Rancher, or to notify one of your operations teams to create that trigger to say, hey, I've seen this condition, and the first thing that I want to do is go and fire off this job that will create a scaling event. Now that's kind of the salesy bit. To be perfectly honest, I've been playing with the workflows, and one of the functions that exists in workflows is, again, you can build a logic in there, but we have an HTTP post functionality. And I've gotten it to work. You could do it hypothetically if you really trusted your observability platform, but you could make a direct call to your Kubernetes API with a set of bearer tokens and a service account to say, hey, when I see a set of pods that is not running in this namespace, you could recycle every single one of them, because Kubernetes isn't really infrastructure, right? It's just a series of APIs that if you give that API a new blueprint or command, it'll run it. So it can be done. John, if you want to throw my email in there, we can connect and we can talk about that. But we would certainly prefer a recommended approach would be to use the existing tooling that you have. Use your existing scaling, AWS native, cloud native, again, like an Ansible, something like that is purpose built to trigger that kind of remediation workflow. You can absolutely do it.
So this is an example for in the case for to add to what you just mentioned. In this particular case, I'm trying to save energy, so it's not using the Kubernetes enriched metric or data coming from the Kubernetes application. Here, I'm using. I'm going to tell a story, but I'm using information from logs coming from Istio to figure out the traffic, and my intention is to save energy. So there is a project called KubeGreen. And at the end, KubeGreen is give you a CRD where you can define the hours where you want to make a workload or namespace sleep completely. Because you, for example, for testing, you know that at 6 p.m. my testers are gone, and then they'll come back in the office at 9 a.m. So basically, during between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. there is no traffic, so no need to have that application running anymore. So sleep info is here to save, but the problem is that you need to figure out the timings. And here, this is an example where, because we have observability data, we can envision to create a workflow that scans the data and figure out which namespace we should sleep, and this is done with workflows. And again, here we don't apply them; we provide suggestions, and you will take actions on that. So we have another questions. The last questions was from Mustafa. Said interested to get more information about the pricing model per pod. Can you share more details? Is it a package of X number of pods per license, item number, blah, 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 and so on? So Kyle or Florian, who wants to take that question?
I'm happy to do it if Kyle doesn't want. Okay. So how does it work? We're basically counting how many pods you are running. And we're doing that on a 15-minute granularity. So how many pods we find within 15 minutes, we're going to charge you. And it's basically what we call pod hours. So we sum that up over the time of an hour. And then that's basically, there's a price for how much you would pay for one pod being monitored for 1 hour. And that's what we're going to charge you. So it's not like you had previously, you had like a certain amount and you would need to pay for like the most that you had. So it's really now usage based. You don't need to pay this upfront. We monitor how much pods you're running, how much we are monitoring, and that's what you're being charged. What's important, I think, to mention here is we don't care about the number of nodes that you're running your pods on. So if you have 20 nodes and 20 pods, it's going to cost you as much as if you would be running these pods on just 2 nodes. So we don't really care about the cluster size. It's only about the pods. That's what you're paying. Kyle, anything to add?
Absolutely. So just to like level set what the current model is, right, is that we kind of use a calculation of the node itself, which works great if you have massive compute nodes, right? You've got 200 nodes running in your clusters with thousands of pods. But some of our customers have seen scenarios where they are running significantly larger pods in their environment, say a 30 gig pod, and they really only want 1 or 2 pods per node. That pricing model can be prohibitive to providing observability data. So what we're trying to do, and it's really important to notice this too, is that the existing pricing and deployment models aren't going away, right? This is new. This is new functionality that we're going to provide. So if you still have observability data, you've got hundreds of thousands of pods, just running inside those, in your environment across multiple different clusters. The cloud native approach that we still have, the classic full stack approach that we've been using for years is still going to be there. And those models will still continue to function. But what we're trying to do here again is look deeper into the infrastructure level, where maybe you don't need to have APM at every turn, right? You only care about the Kubernetes API. You only care about cluster health. Application performance can be extremely helpful in lower environments, but perhaps you don't need it everywhere. So what we're just trying to do is, again, provide additional flexibility, additional options to make sure that you have the right type and volume of observability data across all of your environments without having to pick and choose.
So if I run a cron job where I run it during 10 minutes every hours, this cron job, this pod will never be considered by by our licensing, or because it didn't run more than 50 minutes. That
is a question that I'm not qualified to answer just yet. Florian, I don't know if you're a little bit closer to the heart of, it's a very specific use case.
Yes, I'm having also a hard time. I don't think I want to answer it because it might be wrong. So we want to be sure we give right answers here. So let's delay that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had that question because I was thinking, oh, if I have cron jobs, would they be considered in the pricing of my pods, or is it just containers that are running more longer? No. All right. So we have 8. So sorry for asking these crazy questions. I always have this is me. Sorry. So we have less than 8 minutes to go. So if you have any other questions, let us know, because we are still here to take any of your questions. There's a question from Yannick. Hi, Yannick. It's good to see you. It's been a while. So the question is there a possibility to share some examples, default use cases related to workflow making use of GitHub? That's an excellent question, Yannick. So I don't have it on my tenants. Maybe, Florian, do you have any of those examples, or you want to maybe walk through a Slack or give more details about it? I think
I don't have a workflow right now, but yes, I could talk about resource utilization if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to Yannick, to go back to your example, there is in the workflow there is an HTTP request. So at the end, if you want to make a commit in Git or GitLab or whatever who is managing your repo, you just need the HTTP connections. And I mentioned Edge Connect. So if you have Edge Connect in your cluster and GitLab is in the cluster, you can think about sending the request to Edge Connect, and Edge Connect will do the routing to GitLab. That is actually a total possible use case as well. But I don't have for now anything related to GitHub to show you and go in more details. But reach out to me later on. We can talk about it. So Florian, you want to talk about the resource consumptions? We have exactly 6 minutes. So you have 6 minutes. It's a challenge.
Oh, that's easy. Let's see. Let me share my screen again. So usually when I talk to our customers, first thing comes up is health. And as soon as everything is up and running and everything is good, of course, they want to save money by optimizing their workload. So usually the second question is like, what about utilization? Is there anything Dynatrace can help me with? And the answer is yes, of course. So what you would do is you would typically just switch to the perspective called utilization. And then what you look out for is so-called Slack. So for all of those that don't know, Slack is basically the difference between requests and usage. So if the requests are being blocked by Kubernetes, meaning if you're running out of requests, you get pending bots, so you don't want to have that. And if your usage is far below requests, it means you're wasting a lot of resources in your cluster because it's being blocked, but it's not being used. And Slack is basically the difference. And we integrated this measurement into all of the utilization perspectives in here. So what you can do is you can look at the Slack of your cluster. For example, you can see here that the G-key has 10 cores of Slack. So meaning there's 10 cores being requested, but not being used. So how can we optimize this? Let's look at the namespaces. So I change to the namespaces, again, get the same view. Let's just sort by the Slack, and we find out that the online boutique has a huge CPU Slack in here. So one step further, which workload is causing this lag? So we click at the workloads, still at the utilization view. We see all the workloads, we see usage, throttling, and we can again just sort by Slack, and we figure out that there's almost an entire core being wasted by the card service, meaning it's only using 7.43 millicores while it's requesting an entire core. So there's huge potential for optimization here. And with Dynatrace, it's really easy to figure that out because it's, as you saw, it's just a simple drill down use case that you can do within the app within seconds. So Henrik, as I told you, I don't need 6 minutes to optimize my cluster. That can really be done within seconds, basically.
Wow, that is impressive. I would say a big round of applause for Florian. And I think I was very useful because I think when we were using the previous generation of the product, I was eager to be able to do that, and now you have the options to use the columns, the Slack, and I think this is really useful. So even if you're not confident with the workflow that we showed you, just using the Kubernetes application, the new Kubernetes application, new Kubernetes experience, you can clearly see what you can, how you can save resources, and you can save money and energy and so on and so forth. So we have 3 minutes left, so I think it's time to conclude. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone who's been connected here during this hour. I think it was kind of fun to take your questions, answer. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like the new applications. Let us know in comments what you think about this new Kubernetes applications. We're very eager to hear about what you have in mind. But Kyle, first of all, thanks. Amazing sales guy. I never seen a good.
I'm here to please. You can always reach out to me. My email's already down in there if there's any other follow-up questions. And again, we're going to be at Perform. I think all of us will be. Maybe Florian, I heard maybe you might not make it this year.
Not being there, but I'm going to
bummer. Well, we got you queued at least.
And if you are looking for hot day sessions, you don't know which one you're going to pick the one I am leading, which is Mastering Kubernetes. So you will learn a lot of things about the new Kubernetes application. You will learn a lot of things about automating things in Kubernetes. And if you're eager to see how you can take advantage of external agents to collect extra information, logs, and anything, this is going to be the right hot day session. So don't be shy. Click on the link. Join us at Perform. Let's have fun together doing 2 entire days of hot days. And too sad, Florian is not there, but he will be also an excuse to see Florian. But next time, I think you will be able to see Florian somewhere else.
I'll be back.
This is the Austrian way of saying things.
Yes, I had to do it. Like Kyle's in California.
You get used to it.
Yes.
All right. So thanks, Florian, for your time. Thanks again for the demo. It was great. And I think we are top of the hour, so we can say goodbye to everyone. And happy Christmas if we don't see you for another Ask Me Anything before Christmas. So happy holiday season, and see you soon for another Ask Me Anything. See you guys.
See ya.